Good morning, everybody. Today we are talking about how Instagram is bringing back photos in 2023. This is groundbreaking news. You had creators like Peter McKinnon put out videos 6 months ago talking about how Instagram needed to stop trying to be TikTok. I think we all saw it happen. Reels were literally everywhere and everything. I mean, people were trying to figure out, how do I become Alex Hormozi and shoot 20 reels in one session and do my emojis and those jump cuts, and that's what's going to help me succeed and go viral. And I think a lot of the creators were saying, no. Instagram, you be Instagram. TikTok, you be TikTok. Stop trying to duplicate and copy each other. So I think this is a huge momentum move for Instagram. And I'll compare it to Netflix, right? So Instagram was in a position where the UI UX experience was declining. Like the sentiment of the users on Instagram was declining in a way I'd never seen it. I heard it in Clubhouse rooms. I saw it on Twitter, and people were saying, I just don't like it. Like, I feel like it's commoditized. There's an ad every 4 posts. Like, it's just not enjoyable anymore. I think about Netflix. You saw what just happened with Netflix recently, where they started restricting account use to, like, in your own physical house. Your daughter who's going to school can't use your account as a family member anymore. They are losing people by the thousands, if not tens of thousands. And I think this could be one of the biggest changes for Netflix's business moving forward. Now, what did Netflix do wrong that Instagram is doing right? They didn't listen. There's so much content out there about how this is such a huge mistake for Netflix. Instagram was on the same path. I'm like, man, are they ever going to listen? Well, Adam Mosseri just put out a long video talking about the future of Instagram and what it means for people that are on that platform. So if you want to learn how to potentially grow your Instagram in 2023, build a community, get creative, this is the video for you. We're actually going to talk about how to shoot better photos. I have a special guest that should be around 7:20 EST. So we are live this morning, but this will be on the replay. She's a professional photographer in New York City, takes some of the most beautiful portraits I've ever seen. So I'm going to give you like the blue belt version of photography, and then she's going to come in and give you the black belt version. But let's dig right into the actual things that they're changing on Instagram. So 3 things that Adam Mosseri actually shared. Number 1, their intention in 2023 is to inspire people to be creative. Number 2, they want to help people discover things that they love. And number 3, they want to spark connections between people over things that they love, right? And there's 2 distinct ways they're going to do this. There's photos, and then there's reels. I'm going to talk about in a minute the difference between those 2 and how they're looking at reels versus how they're looking at photography. But the inspiring people to be creative piece, I absolutely love, because I do find that Instagram really did become a place where it was ubiquitous. People were just copying each other's styles. And even people in industries, like I'm in the real estate industry, are so interchangeable in terms of the style of the reels, in terms of the photos that they're taking, of what they're doing and where they're doing it, that you kind of lose the human connection that should exist when it comes to a platform like Instagram. So I'm going to give you a couple of insights on how I shoot photography and how I'm incorporating it, but let's get right to brass tacks. So reels versus reels versus actual posts. Reels, they're going to be using to find a new audience. So we're not saying that reels are dead, right? We're saying they're bringing posts back. But think about it this way. Your reels are your opportunity to make new connections and meet new people. So when you're making your reels, you need to think about what type of value are you giving a specific community. And I want you to be very dialed in about this. Instagram Reels actually have the potential to reach a 300% larger audience than your in-feed posts. They've done this thoughtfully, because if I'm putting out posts that are geared towards educating real estate agents, that is the audience that I'm going to attract, right? That's hashtag strategy. It's not as many hashtags as I can and just try and game the system and what's a trending hashtag. It's need to tell Instagram, who am I speaking to, right? I speak to primarily real estate agents and consumers that are looking to buy and sell real estate. There's 2 Justins. One Justin is educating the entire industry because I want all of the referrals to come to Prime, and I also want to raise the bar in the industry. That's why I put out so much content, sharing my secrets and trying to build a better industry. And it results in an insane amount of referrals. We cover all of Southwestern Ontario, and they come to us on a daily basis because I talk about it and I actually put it in my content. The other side of Justin is Prime, right? Prime is aiming to be the most trusted name in real estate. You hire me for Prime and my systems, not necessarily just for Justin, because the systems are better than just Justin, but I'm talking to consumers. So when I'm putting out content speaking to consumers and solving their problems, I'm literally telling those people on Instagram that those are the people I want to reach through my hashtags and through the content. And I'm going to give you an example of a couple ways that I do this in my content moving forward in this. Another thing I wanted to mention is the nav bar, right? So if you look at Instagram, hopefully I don't mess up the Clubhouse stream by doing this, but if you actually look at the way that the nav bar is set up, they've moved things on the actual screen. There's Brian Benstock. What up, Benstock? Saturday morning sales meeting on Clubhouse, absolute fire. But they've removed the Reels button from the top. So it used to be up there. It's gone. You can't even do your stories up there anymore. Down here, they got rid of the shopping button that used to exist that nobody ever used. So shopping's gone. The button in the middle is the create button. The Reels is to the right of it. So these are your two primary, right? The reason they changed the nav bar, UI, UX, make it very easy for people to share content. Now, when you're sharing Reels, that's a little bit more evergreen, right? And if you're looking at Reels versus stories, people are often confused. I think a lot of people will share stories that could actually be Reels, like quick tips and things that could live on in perpetuity. So think about what you're sharing. Your stories are now going to become your vlog, right? So Reels are reaching a new audience. Stories are bringing people into your ecosystem and making them feel like they are with you on a daily basis to build your community. And then once you've built the community, your main feed is now where you can speak to your community. I have been so confused about this over the years, but now I finally understand it because Adam actually spoke about it. Your in-feed posts are for your announcements and your community engagement. So when you're talking to people in your posts, I'm talking to people that are watching this right now. Tap subscribe, tap like, go follow me on Instagram, become part of my community, ask me questions, engage with me in the DMs. If you're curious about my segments, if you have a real estate referral, you are part of my community. I know I'm live on YouTube right now. I'm live on Clubhouse, but my goal is to build the best community on the planet. I don't sell anything. I'm not selling you any courses or coaching. All the power in the world to the people that do. I'm just not in a place in my life where I have the time to do that. So I'm not doing it. But I want to help people. So you have a question about photography, you have a question about YouTube. I have so many resources that you can literally DM me directly and I will respond to you. Even though I got followers and all the things, I find it so funny that creators or influencers pretend that they're too busy to respond to a DM. Guys like Gary Vee, Ryan Serhant, they respond themselves. I know this because I work with Ryan, right? And I know that he actually responds to the DMs himself, and I know what his team responds to. So if they can do it, I can do it. And I've automated some of the things on the back end that if you need help with podcasting, YouTube, real estate, I can give you resources because I've just been asked the question so many times. Quick poll if you're on the YouTube live. If you're not on Clubhouse, please click the link at the top of the room. At the very top, I actually dropped a poll. I want to know, do you like videos or photo more? This is more just some curiosity pieces for me. And feel free to jump into the comments. I see so many people here. YouTube user, drop your name in. You're excited for the YouTube content, but I want to know who you are. I see Dora Marie. She just launched a book. She's amazing. And yes, photos are coming back. I see you. Dream, plan, start, grow. Good morning. Business coach, marketer, and speaker. Olivier Maurice, commercial real estate expert from Montreal. He's amazing. He has a great channel, French and English. If you're French, go check out that channel. Grace Moore Grace, Melody Mitchell, EXP in Tennessee. I love Tennessee. Dollywood is my daughter's favorite place on the planet, and I love the Smoky Mountains. I've seen bears and wolves and all kinds of fun stuff there. Roger Horvath on my team, the Flying Realtor. He's actually got the highest designation of a helicopter pilot in all of Canada. He flies the air ambulance, and he crushes commercial real estate with me at Prime, and Sheila Santini is here on a weekly basis. So nice to see you. And, I think it's so smart of you to jump into the comments because now if somebody else needs a commercial realtor or somebody in Tennessee, those connections happen kind of organically. And that's how you need to think about Instagram. So quick refresh. Your reels that you're going to start planning are your batch content that is trying to find a new audience. Just you got to think about who you're talking to and what problems they all have. Go solve those problems. And there's your hashtag strategy. Your stories then become your interaction with those people to get them to become your followers in your community. And your posts are your more simple announcements. And I'll show you some examples of profiles that I like right now in terms of how this is done effectively and how I'm changing mine. So this is a little screen share like I like to do. Go check out Mo Seri on Instagram. So this is the guy that's the head of Instagram. He has a couple videos where he actually talks about everything I'm speaking about now. If you're interested, I always say if you want to get good at something, try and learn every single day. I think it's absolutely key. His feed, though, is funny because it's pretty chopped up. It doesn't follow the pattern of what we're talking about here. But I'll show you an example of somebody who does, right? Peter McKinnon, he used to work at Henry's Photography. So a lot of people look at him now, 3.2 million followers, one of the biggest channels on YouTube, unequivocally like one of the largest creators on Canadian YouTube, or if not YouTube, period. But he was a camera guy at Henry's Photography Studio until he wasn't. He used YouTube to unlock his absolute best life ever. And his feed is probably one of the most beautiful to look at. And he actually works it in seasons. So I'm inspired by Peter's content. I follow quite a bit of it. And he has LUT pack. So a LUT pack is like an image overlay he does to give it a vibe. So right now he's in his winter mode. But if you actually scroll back, this is heavy winter mode. You'll see it go into fall. So the oranges. You'll see how it's got a fall vibe. There's him with his raptor. And then it's going to go into summer. Like, he actually very thoughtful about how the brights kind of come in too. And if you go back, you'll see how he'll go into spring, right? So he even thinks about the reality and the seasonality of his photos because it connects him with his audience. I try and do the same thing with my YouTube videos, with my content, with my stories and my reels. I live in Grand Bend, Ontario, and I think it's amazing that we have 4 seasons here. Even though we're a beach town and people know us for the summer, I try and share the fact that we have one of the best winters here ever. Now, I'll show you my feed, and my feed down here is a little bit more choppy, right? You'll see people that have been on this stage, different posts that I've done, a lot of image overlays, a lot of those kind of real images. But now I am thoughtfully curating my feed. So the last 6 photos are a lot cleaner and more organized, because I know Instagram is making this a priority in the future. So I'm practicing now. This one's kind of out of place. I'm not sure if I could take it out of my profile grid. I can't. So I just need to think about the thumbnail. This was actually auto posted from later. So instead of auto posting, I would actually only publish natively in app so I can control that thumbnail and what my feed actually looks like. My reels are my reels, and this is more of kind of a video feed of my longer form property tour videos, micro content, and reels. But I think this is super important. What does your profile grid look like? Who are you? And if I looked at this without knowing you, would I have an idea of who you are and what you do? Ryan Serhant, like I mentioned him multiple times, my mentor, I've worked with him since 2018. I've had some insights into how he built his organization. There's a podcast I did with him actually in the old Soho space years ago on my YouTube channel when I first met him. And that's super insightful. And you can see how his feed is very fast, but now it's getting more and more polished, right? Like this. These are ways that I can look at, okay, if I'm presenting a property tour video for King's Landing, how can I set up the reel so it sits in feed and is very visually appealing, right? Because it is going to matter in the future. So something I wanted to just give you some insights in terms of how I look at that. Now, if I'm taking images, right, and I want to talk about taking actual pictures and how to take really good pictures, I'm going to go back to another screen. This is a picture of the Thames River. I go fishing on a skiff in this river all the time. It's in an area that I do business in. So if I'm fishing on this river, I was actually on my bike that day, all I did was I stopped, took an image that I really liked of the river that I fish in a community where I sell houses. I also took an Instagram story, and I also pressed the record button, and I gave some context. So you can't take powerboats down this river because it's one of the most conservationally protected rivers. But I also talked that you can fish and you can kayak in it, and it goes 7 kilometers into the Pinery. So if I sell you a house where this little dock is, guess what? You can have a canoe and you can live in paradise and feel like you live in Jurassic Park. Right. So I did 3 things in the span of 5 minutes because I knew in my head what I was trying to do with it. When I go to this slew of pictures, this is in Bayfield, Ontario, a beautiful little coastal community that I cover as well too. Local business. I actually run the Bayfield Facebook group. So every time I'm in Bayfield for ice cream with my wife, I bring my camera or my iPhone and I try and snap as many photos as I can so I can showcase the beauty of the space. This is the Thames River, my other fishing spot. I'm quite often in Clubhouse, actually with an AirPod in my ear, fishing at this exact spot. Same concept. This is Moraine Lake. This is in Banff. Not something I would share on my feed, right? It is a photo that I took of a beautiful lake that I thought about. This is in California, another photo that I took. This was me kind of learning photography. You can see how it's not perfect, right? Like the exposure and the light and everything isn't ideal. I'm going to talk about a couple things I've learned about photography, and then I'm going to kick it over to a friend of mine who's a professional photographer. Again, Beartooth Pass, traveling videos. This is funny because I actually just saw on Peter's feed his photo of that same lake, and it is levels above my photos. If I actually remove the screen share, you'll see right behind me there is his photo. So be inspired by people that are way better than you. I'm not scared of sharing things that I love because it makes me more of who I am. But it also gives me the ability to share with my community and build a community that, hey, this is my paddleboard and this is the beach that I get to work out on every morning. This is Hoover Dam. This is the area that I live in, and they're doing construction. So I'm sharing with my community that, hey, if you want to live in an amazing town like Grand Bend, Ontario, this is what life is actually like by sharing the fact that I'm there, and this is what my life is like. I'm going to end my screen sharing there. I do want to give you guys a couple minutes to learn from an expert. Can you unmic if you are there, Regina? Can you hear me? I cannot hear Regina. Can anybody else hear her? Is it just me?
No. I cannot hear her. Cannot.
Okay, we'll wait for her mic to come back. I'll share a couple things that I've learned about photography and how you can take better pictures and images for your feed. So three things that I think about. First thing I think about is the framing of the photo. So the rule of thirds. I'm actually going to go back to my screen share and share how I kind of structure the image. So when you're looking at something, you're not just taking it flat on and you want something to pop. I'm thinking about what is the main focus of my image. I'm thinking about this, right? So I hang my rings here. This is where I do my workout. So clearly I use the rule of thirds of if I drew a grid over this photo, I'm trying to take 3 of those squares and keep my image in those 3 squares, right? So I'm positioning whatever my main image is in the 3 squares of the grid. You can turn your grids on your iPhone or your camera, Google it. It's super easy to do. And then just use the crosshairs of your grids to position the actual image. If I actually go through some of these photos, you'll see how I do it in different ways. Same thing here, bottom left-hand corner, I put the paddleboard in the grid in the lower left third. I put Hoover Dam. The Hoover Dam itself is the focus, but the background really kind of adds to it, right? So I think about the composure of it. I don't want to get too technical into the details of it. If Regina comes back, I can get her in. Regina, are you there? I see you unmiked. Oh no, she's having mic problems. I'll actually get her on the podcast. Regina, I will send you a link to come on my podcast and talk about photography, and then I'll reshare it with everybody that's here. So I'm going to give you all the opportunity to get a replay of that podcast in a minute. But yeah, Regina, send me a DM. I'll get you in there for sure. So then when I go back and look at my images, the next thing I think about is what is my lighting, right? So think about what the focus is of your image, and then think about the lighting of your image. So a lot of times early on in my career, when I was taking photos, I would take a lot of photos that were super backlit. The sun would be behind me. And then all of a sudden I would just be completely dark because I had this massive orb of light behind me. I started learning little things like natural light that is directional towards you actually casts a much nicer image, right? If you're taking specific types of photography. If I'm shooting a video like this in the morning, I use a key light to light me up a little bit because lighting is very important. Now, if you don't have gear and equipment, it doesn't matter. I would say 90% of the time I use natural light. I use windows in my house. I use the windows at my office, and I just try and get around natural light. I think it's one of the most powerful things you could possibly do. So think about the composure of the image, think about the lighting, and then you can start thinking about the quality of it. Again, I don't want to get too technical, but there's 3 concepts when it comes to photography. There's the frame rate, which is how quickly the image is being taken. So if you have a moving object, is it going to be just paused in midair because it was a super fast frame rate? Or is there going to be a motion blur of that image because it's moving by you, but you have a slower exposure and a slower frame rate, right? I know when you get into certain photos, like this would be a longer exposure. This is not a very good exposure at all. But different, sorry, let me just share my screen. Different exposures provide different images. If I take a very long exposure, what's going to happen is those waves are going to be very smoothed out because it's taking that movement and it's going to just lay it out. The second thing is the ISO. So if you're using a camera, the ISO is basically that number of adjustments you're making for the lack of light. And I'm trying to keep this in layman's terms for you. So when I go back to show you an example, you see the graininess in this image. This was taken on a terrible camera that was probably doing its own ISO adjustment. I typically like to keep my ISO as low as possible, depending on what I'm shooting. I would say if you can keep it under 1200, 1400, that seems to work for me. If I'm shooting video I really try and balance it out. And then the last thing would be frame rate. If you're shooting video. So I talked about the frames per second that you're shooting the actual image in. When it comes to video, there's a rule that you want to stick by. And now I'm getting super technical. But it's the 180-degree rule. So if I'm shooting something in an image of 24 frames per second or 25 frames per second, I just want to double that for my actual frame, or the frame rate, or the aperture, exposure, and then the ISO, so that it's half of the amount of what I'm actually shooting in. So I'm not going to get super technical with it, but when it comes to actually shooting your images, what I'd like you to think about for the future of your profile is rule of thirds, lighting first. Let's keep it super, super simple. Equipment, I want you to think about absolutely last. If you have a smartphone camera, you have a better device than I took that Hoover Dam picture on. If you have a smartphone device, you're going to take more pictures than you're going to take with a high-end DSLR. You can spend $5,000 on a camera, and then you could realize that you're not going to carry that with you every day. And you should just get really, really good at taking photos with your iPhone or your Android. The cameras that are on these phones are better than some of the $5,000 to $10,000 devices we've had in the past. Plus, you don't really need to learn to use them. Everything's on YouTube. This device, I spoke to a photographer yesterday, is actually starting to replace some of the high-end infrared cameras in terms of what they can do. So one of the biggest things people try and do is measurements, right? We use a Matterport camera, scans your house in 3D, creates a 3D model and floor plans. Now the technology in the iPhone camera and LiDAR is even better than the old Matterport cameras. So we may be actually to just use our iPhones to do our measurements in the future, versus a $7,000 camera that you have to host online for multiple thousands of dollars a year. So innovation is the future of business. I love that now Instagram has realized that you can bring your creativity, your inspiration, your passions into their platform to build a bigger community. If you want to build a bigger community, jump in the comments, type in the words community. If you want to join our community, go to justinconoco.com/resources. I'll drop that in the chat, and I will replace the link on Clubhouse with that link. This is where you can go to get direct access to me. So if you go to justinconoco.com/resources, I'll scroll down. I've got PDFs that I've built for the community. People ask me, how do you create so much content, Justin? Here's the guide. How do you organize so much time, Justin? How do you run the real estate business, your personal business, your family life, the production company? The time blocking guide is exactly how I do it. How do I get started with YouTube? I brought on experts and did a whole PDF on that. How do I get started with storytelling? Kyle Scott, the president of Sirhan Ventures, did a whole talk on storytelling and how Ryan used storytelling to build his brand. If you think storytelling matters, jump in the comments, type in the word storytelling, and then how do I maximize productivity and creativity? So all of that exists at justinconoco.com/resources. So you can go there to connect with me. And also that's where I'm going to drop any of the opportunities I have to collaborate with me. I'm going to do them very sparingly, but I am going to reach out to my community and do small closed group sessions that are not going to be live streamed with content that you cannot find anywhere online in terms of the secrets of what we're doing on the back end. So if you want to do that, go over to justinconoco.com/resources. And as always, join us on Clubhouse on Breakfast with Champions. I'm heading back there right now for a little Q&A, and I'll catch you next Friday. See you for now.